It's showtime,
Yes,
and we're live. Paul Nealon, joined by Jack Maguire, and we are here watching Burnley, or Manchester City versus Burnley on Sky Sports. I have a main event. I'm not sure what you have it on, Jack.
yeah, I'm on main event as well now.
Okay. We're waiting on Will to join as well. I think he's having some trouble with his connection, but once he kind of gets on, then we'll get him on. Kicking off there, all the players were just down on one knee there for obviously the Black Lives Matter, but how have you found having the Premier League back and having I suppose football back with more of an interest?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's brilliant to have it back. Obviously the first few games were a bit shaky. Liverpool game yesterday evening was you know, there wasn't much great play in it. I thought coming of it. I thought it was a bit scarce, but the other games were good at the weekend. Now, I enjoyed. Unfortunately, Sheffield United, with all our Irish men, they didn't do too great. But it's any kind of sport at the moment. I was just seeing one of the playoff semi-finals. There was a League Two playoff was on just before this. Even
Exeter
them
and
sort of
Colchester, was it?
games. It was, yeah. Exeter actually came through. They came through 3-1, and literally any sort at all, I'm happy to have back. But particularly top level, you can't beat it, And how have you found so far? Obviously, having Everton back yesterday was nice, but overall, have you enjoyed it?
Ah, yeah. Well, I mean, well, obviously with the Irish players playing as well, like Obafemi Connolly. I know Shane Duffy was on the bench, but then you had obviously Duffy, Egan, Egan Stevens. I
Yeah,
know Dizzy didn't play at the weekend, but he played the game before that. So yeah, with that interest as well, it was obviously nice to see, and there's obviously competition there, players playing for European spots like Chef U and Matt Doherty at Wolves, and obviously he played well as well. So it was just nice to
yeah,
see that. Seamus Coleman obviously had a great game with Everton yesterday as well. So it was that added bit of interest with the Irish players as well. I know the championship's back as well, but I'll tell you the truth, I didn't really actually watch any championship over the weekend at all because the Premier League kind of took over. It's on like it's a game
yeah.
on and on live every time, so you can't miss it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's you. To be fair, no, the new kickoff times are nice as well. I like, even yesterday evening having a Sunday night kickoff. It was very strange, but it was nice. A Sunday evening. Just chilling out watching the game. I think it's something they could use going forward. Having three games on a Sunday.
Yeah, especially for families. Like I was over watching it with my cousin and my uncle, the Everton game. They're Everton fans as well as me, so it
Yeah,
was just nice to be in that kind of company because I can't watch the Merseyside derbies with Liverpool fans. It just does my head in too much. It'd be like watching an Ireland England game with England fans. It'd be just like
yeah,
that, you know. But like it's just great to have it back. And then obviously you have the Champions League and the Europa League will be back as well, which which will be after the Premier League, so it's something even to look forward to then. So I don't think we're going to have a break for football to maybe September. And even at that, you have the international stuff then as well, because that all starts.
yeah.
Stephen Kenny's taking over then. There's some comments there, just going to run through real quick. There's
Okay.
people saying hello and stuff like that, so we just encourage people to get involved. Bo's FC Fan TV says hello.
How's it
Um,
going?
Ireland for Euros says hi.
Hello,
Chris Brophy on Facebook says, "Hey lads, how are you? Or how are you? Whatever way you want to do it." All right, Brophy, how are
Brophy.
you? Um, and that's it for, in terms of the comments. Get your comments in for discussion if there's something that you want us to talk about, whether it's the fact that Jeff Hendrick and Robbie Brady aren't in the squad. That's probably something we're going to talk about now anyway. But if there's something that you want us to talk about, get involved in the comments, and we'll if we feel it's a conversation worth talking about, we will. But Jack, obviously Brady, Hendrick not in the squad, but Jimmy Dunn and Kevin Long are on the bench for
Yeah.
Burnley. Obviously that Irish connection there. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that's because they're moving abroad or not abroad, moving
Um.
away?
Yeah. Well, personally, I'm disappointed they're not in the team. Obviously, I was looking forward to hopefully seeing a few of the lads get around this evening and prove to Stephen Kenny again that they belong in the team. But I think the move for Jeff Hendry, it kind of caught a lot of people by surprise, didn't it? When the talk of AC Milan came about, a lot of people were kind of shrugging their shoulders and they seemed a bit doubtful. But you know, I've always admired Jeff Hendrick. I always think he's a fantastic player, and he'd be one of the main men on the Ireland team for me anyway. And you know, I suppose with Burnley, he's been handy. As is Robbie Brady. After Euro 2016, Robbie, he wasn't in the best of form, but I don't know, is a move away for him on the cards, do you think? I know Jeff probably will go, I think, whether it is to Milan or elsewhere in England. But I don't know, has there been rumours about Robbie Brady where he might go? But
I think what happened with Brady was he had an extension for his contract, and I think Burnley
oh yes, yeah,
they activated that clause, whereas Hendrick, I think he's happy enough to just let his contract run down. Whether he's looking for a new deal out of
yeah,
that, I don't know. You know, it's well documented himself and Robbie Brady are best mates. So will he want
yeah,
to stay and play his football with his best mate? Is he stick a being shifted out to the right because I know he likes to play in the centre midfield. So these kind of things will come into play. Like, will he go somewhere where he will be a centre midfielder? When he's played as the kind of centre attacking midfielder for Ireland, he's done okay. Where he's
yeah,
actually he's running onto balls and you kind of see not so much he sees what's in front of him, but he's able to run onto balls and make better runs. And if the ball
yeah,
drops on the edge of the
absolutely,
box,
yeah,
like he did against Gibraltar, I know it's only Gibraltar, but those type of runs, he's good at making. I remember him. I set up a goal for Jonathan Walters, and it was around 2015, and he skinned a few people out in the top left of the pitch and cut one back for
yeah,
Walters. And then obviously the goal against Wales, James McLean's goal where he tracked it down, he whipped the ball in, and Harvey Arter stepped over McLean, scored. So he has had moments. People are just quick to knock him down. Although he hasn't
yeah.
been amazing, I'll admit that as well. Um, he hasn't been as terrible. I think his passing could improve, but is that because he's forced to play kind of a way where he's just restricted or something? Because that's what it kind of looks like to me.
Yeah, that's true. It does seem it in a way. And there was talk, whether true or false, that Celtic were interested in Jeff Hendrick and maybe a move for the two of them. I don't know. It might be impossible. And it could solve Celtic's problem as well of full backs maybe. If Robbie Brady could come in, I'm not sure, but I'd love to see the two of them personally at Celtic. Have a few more Irishmen in the squad. With the departure of Johnny Hayes. Johnny Hayes had his medical with Aberdeen today, so I think that's another new venture for him. Obviously, he was used to it from before, but you know it's a pity that he never made that step up to the Ireland squad because he's one of my favorite players. But
Didn't
would
he
you rate
break
him
his?
personally? Or
Did he break his leg?
he did, I think. Did he? He did actually a few years ago. He did, and then he came back and he scored a goal against Celtic in the cup final. But
Did he not break his leg while playing for Celtic and he was out for ages? No, I thought he did.
I don't think he broke his leg. I
Well,
don't
he
think
was
so.
out injured for a long spell. And that's kind of why he wasn't really getting in, and people were saying
Yeah,
that he should be in the Ireland squad and whatever. Actually, loads of times when we put up squads on Instagram or whatever with the picture of the players,
yeah,
people will always be moaning saying, "Look, why isn't Johnny Hayes in the squad?" So I think that's testament to how good he's been when he has been fit. But he's
yeah,
been too in and out of the team, and if you're in and out at Celtic, you're not really gonna get picked for the Ireland national team. And that's just the way it is,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, you have to be a regular, don't you? Kind of putting in shifts week in, week out. Sporadic isn't enough, to be honest. When
Yeah,
you're talking about the top level.
there's a few comments coming in asking this similar question, saying, "Hey lads, what are your predictions for the Ireland Euros games?" I think and then there was one kind of, "What do you think Ireland's midfield would be in the Euros?" Now we're not guaranteed to get to the Euros. We have to play
Mm,
Slovakia in a playoff, and we have to win that playoff and then another one after that. So there's no guarantee that we will be in the Euros this time next uh, June. But obviously, we all hope that we are there. But
yeah,
just in regards to midfield, there's so many players that kind of came through this year. Like you think of Malumbi, Knight, um, Coventry could make a claim for the West Ham midfield next season, depending on where they are as well. Because if they go down, he'd be more likely to get a run.
yeah,
Josh Cullen will be back there as well. Whether he decides to move on from there or not, he might decide to sign permanently with Charlton. Who knows? But he's 24 now. I didn't realize he was that old till recently, and
yeah,
he really needs to kick on now. He obviously started against Bulgaria and was man of the match, really good. But he just, for me, needs to kick on now and start actually getting a run if he wants to be an automatic starter for the Ireland team. And obviously, James McCarthy coming back from injury too is massive.
Yeah, I think that's a huge shout, James McCarthy. You know, I know he came on the other night for Crystal Palace. He didn't have much time on the field, but there's definitely a case for him going forward. And like you say, Malumbi, Stephen Kenny's going to have these games in September before the playoff to test out with his squad. And hopefully, all going well, if Ireland make the Euros, he's going to have the start of next year to be experimenting, see who's able to step up to the challenge. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the likes of Malumbi starting come the Euros next year if we make it. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him breaking into the squad, like you say, with McCarthy retaking his place. And I'd be delighted to see a few of them younger players coming through, showing what they're made of, because that's the future for us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm obviously with Knight there, and there's probably a couple of I'm missing as well. But with McCarthy coming back, if Hendrick gets a moves, because it looks like he's not bothered staying around in Burnley, and you can't really blame
Yeah,
him. So if he's there and he's playing for a team and he's getting a run,
yeah,
who's to say he won't be a different player under Stephen Kenny as well? So
absolutely.
this as Stephen Kenny came out and said there the other day, um, sorry, some phone keeps going off. If he gets into the vein of form and Stephen Kenny starts picking him, he could be a totally different player under Stephen Kenny. That's what I think. And he mentioned the other day on his interview with FAI TV that it's great to have competition in midfield because
Yeah.
he name checked Harry Arthur, he name checked
Mm.
James McCarthy, and then he name checked Jason Malumbi. Sorry, so he's name checking all these players as well as what we already got. I don't think Glenn Whelan will be around after this season now. I think that'll be the end of him for Ireland unless we're really, really stuck. But I don't think we will be. I think Stephen won't be afraid
Mm.
to bring in youth, and that'll be the difference. But
Yeah,
the key thing is obviously the Nations League games before that. And
absolutely. Yeah, they'll be key.
yeah, so I think they're going to be the things that if someone does well or stands out. And that you still have Josh Cullen in there. As I said, Jason Knight could be looking. If he's still he's learning off Wayne Rooney day in day out at Derby. So who's to say he won't kick on even more next season at the start of next season. So there's lots of hope there in midfield, which is great. Connor Ronan, if he starts getting a run in at Wolves, who knows that number
Yeah.
10 position. We're obviously lacking creative players. Jack Byrne is also there. Who he doesn't really get mentioned at the moment because the league is not going ahead, but that's due to come back now as of the 31st of July, which is great news. So yeah, it's positive in midfield in my opinion. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think the same, and like you were saying about Stephen Kenny's interview, he mentioned David McGoldrick as well, and how these young players coming through can play off him, particularly the strikers. I know the midfield, the likes of Malumbi and Conor Ronan going forward. And the thing about Stephen Kenny, he won't be afraid to bring in the young players. I think they certainly have an advantage having worked under him before. And maybe if there's some League of Ireland players, you know, he'll be looking towards them as well, having the League of Ireland experience. And I think it opens the door for more young players coming through, having Stephen Kenny in charge. And I think the likes of McGoldrick, I think he'll be key to the plans, even going forward, because he's solid at the front. He might, I remember the Georgia game there. We were at the Georgia game in the Aviva, and the work he was doing off the ball was incredible. He was making runs to the left and to the right of the box, and he was always there. He mightn't get on the end of every ball, or he mightn't score every time the ball goes forward, but he was always making these runs, and it can only get better with the likes of the young lads coming through in midfield.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, he's given them all confidence because if you look at it, before he took over at the under 21s, none of those players had a look in at club level. And
Yeah,
he brought them to the Toulon tournament. After that Toulon tournament, the bones of that squad all went on playing first team football and became regulars for their teams. Even Darrow O'Shea's become a bit of a regular, even though he's been playing right back for West Brom.
yeah,
Um, Then you have Conor Masterson wasn't really getting a look until the second half of the season at QPR. Nathan Collins has been in and out, but he's been captain at Stoke as well. So, even in the defence department, and then you obviously have the strikers coming through. Obafemi looked a bit off it the other night, still got an assist, still looked like he was causing the other team trouble throughout. Connolly didn't really do much until he got the assist. Looked a bit off it as well, but I mean, he got the assist. That's the important thing. He actually made he made the difference. Obviously Mopai scored the goal, but Connolly gave a great ball, 1-2, boom, and he was in. So I don't think Troy Parrott would be near the squad though. I mean, people go on about Troy Parrott, but he actually hasn't done anything, apart from score for the underage and obviously doing well in the youth league, the UEFA Youth League. So he hasn't really done much, and everyone's given the hype train to him. But got Shane Long back there, Adam Ida. If Norwich go down, I think they will go down. If they go down, then here's Will now. This thing's just joining there, so he'll be joining soon. But
Okay. Perfect.
If Norwich go down, then you got Adam Ida, and then how you will.
Yeah. How's it going?
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Good evening, lads.
How's it going, Will?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're just a little bit delayed, but we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, I can just about hear you. Yeah. Fortunately, the connection has dropped tonight for some reason. Not sure why, but
yeah, you're about an hour. You're about an hour behind us. Here's a goal, I think. Oh, how did he miss?
It's very close. Yeah.
That Bernardo Silva on his right foot. Can you hear us all right, Will?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 5-second delay.
Hold on, I'm going to turn my thing around so it's. It's the best I can do, I'm afraid. It's probably because I'm on my phone, not my laptop.
Oh no, we were talking about the Irish midfield, and we were talking like obviously Hendrick and Brady aren't in the squad tonight. Probably looking like they're on the move. I know Burnley extended Brady's contract by a year or whatever, but I still think he could go for cheap enough if they decide to. I think maybe they put that clause in so they make a bit of money up, because obviously Hendrick's looking like he's gonna go. What are your thoughts on that, Will? Hello?
I think you said, what's my thoughts on that? It's all a bit of a strange situation, but I don't think you can blame either the players or Burnley for it. Obviously, it's something that has. It's just one of those things with obviously the COVID-19 situation. That's a very unforeseen thing that's happening with players' contracts running out, and yet still a season to play. Sean Dyche was talking just before the match about he was being pushed by Patrick Davison about what the actual story is with the likes of Joe Hart and Jeff Hendrick and Aaron Lennon. And from the players' point of view, you can kind of see that if, for instance, if they're not getting new contracts next season, then you're really taking a huge risk to extend your deal for a week or two, because if any of them gets injured, then the likelihood of them getting a contract next season from the very beginning is very un from themselves. I'm sure the players, they've been at Burnley and fairly committed to the club. It's it's a real team up there. So you can understand it from there. You can understand it from Burnley's point of view, obviously wanting to get them to play for the next few weeks so they have a squad. They've only 7 substitutes on the bench tonight, which is very surprising that they haven't called in an extra few youth players who, one, maybe aren't training, aren't ready, or perhaps Sean Dyche is just kind of going to the chairman, well, look, if you're not going to give my players, perhaps he wants those players to be given contracts, and they haven't been given contracts. So they're playing Man City. If they get hammered tonight, it's kind of almost, we need investment in the summer, and you better provide it, or this is what's going to happen next season. So I said there's a little management, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah, Jack. What do you make of Burnley anyway as a side? Because I take Brady and Hendrick out of the equation. Obviously, they've got Long there, who's just been a stopgap on the bench, never really plays, always on the bench, and seems happy enough to do that for most of his career. But like, you look around their team, and there's no one really that makes you go, "Oh wow!" Like, people go on about Dwight McNeil. He does very little in games, and people go on about him like he's a great player, but I don't think he is at all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There is no standout players. Like, even a few years ago, I used to love watching Burnley when, say, Stephen Ward and Johnny Walters, and you had a full squad of Irish players, and it was a joy to watch them, because it would, you'd have an idea what to expect when it came to the national team. There was that bit of chemistry built up from the club as well, and I don't know. When I saw the stats there, they went undefeated for 7 games before the break, which was an incredible record. I never would have expected that, and I just feel going forward, I suppose Chris Wood is probably as good as it gets. Will he be looking for a transfer in the summer? I don't know, but I suppose other than him, I don't see any standout names. Like you say, it's a pity to see the likes of Hendrick and Brady. If they do go, it'll be 2 talented players last. And like Will said, goal. What a strike.
Here, I'm not getting that. It's gone out for a corner for me.
1-0.
Well, that was a serious goal.
Let's see how it is now. It's just gone out for a corner there. Aguero hit it off the defender. It's gone out for a corner at the minute. So I'm on 22 minutes. Sorry. Here we go. Obviously.
You'll be seeing it shortly. Yeah, fantastic strike.
Nice. That's 2-2 for him since the return, isn't it?
It is, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
He's
been doing well.
From a Aguero rebound.
It's great to see him getting starts anyway. But I was saying there about Burnley, like Will was saying about management, and Sean Dyche maybe wants to give the players a contract. He wants to get more out of them, but if it's out of his hands, unfortunately, it could see Burnley, dip in form. But do you think, Will, that a move away from Burnley might be the best option for the lads, or do you think they have a future there? Do you think it would benefit them in the long run to move away, or?
It's a good strike, but I think Nick Pope will be
barely getting any of your words, Will.
Unhappy with that.
We only got unhappy with that, and at the start, we got like half a word
to sign for. Very small team who are. It's what you're being sold on when you join there is the team. You're being sold there, and Sean Dyche is the manager who's created a fantastic team, and that's the key word about Burnley. It's all about the team. There has not been great individual stars at that club. For one of a better phrase, I hate using cliches, they're all an honest set of lads, with a few players who've got a little bit of creativity, a little bit about them in there. But usually then Burnley will, take them, perhaps sell them on for a profit. We've seen Danny Ings was one of those a few years ago who was there. Chris Wood is the typical sort of player. Again, a good, honest sort of player. And that's, I think, been their strength, because there is no sort of standout superstar. Then none of the players really get kind of notions above their station. None of them, they're not in all looking for wage rises every week or so. And that's what's done them. As you said, the record this season, I think it's their longest undefeated runs in 18 months. And again, their position in the table, they're on 39 points. You look at the squad and you compare that squad to some of the other squads that are down around the bottom of the table. Bournemouth the other night have a very equal squad in my eyes in comparison to the Burnley side. But sometimes as well, you find that after being a few roads of they've been in, the money is a big thing. It starts to kind of flatten out because players who've been there will have got pay rises and stuff, and then you're trying to attract new players. I did an interview a few years ago, Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish, and he told me that every year it actually gets revived, but then it becomes more difficult and more difficult every year because agents will say, "Well, you're an established Premier League club now. You know, you banked loads of money. You know, my player wants this, my player wants that," and again, you're trying to attract players to Burnley. So I think Sean Dyche will be definitely using this as a sign to the board. You either back me in the transfer market in the summer, not that he wants to bring in big name signings, but he'll want money to spend. And this is the kind of warning: if you don't, we're going to struggle next season. And I think Burnley could struggle next season because you just look at what's out there tonight on the bench. Two players who've got Premier League experience on the bench, and that's it. And even the starting 11 doesn't really get the energy going when you see it. It'll be interesting to see what this ends up tonight score wise.
Yeah, definitely. And you go. It is a thing now with obviously the players and winding down their contracts and stuff like that. But at the same time, you can see where they're coming from regarding injuries. If something happens to them, that's their big money move gone. You know, like you've seen it with Ryan Fraser at Bournemouth. He says, "I'm not playing." Even with like some of the Everton players, I'm sure weren't playing last night because they're going to be gone. I mean, Everton had two keepers on the bench last night, and you know, not really a whole lot coming off the bench either. So I think everyone just really wants to get this season over and done with, and then you know it's all about who people bring in for next season. I think everyone just wants to get the season over and done with and focus on getting next season started up straight away.
I think as well you have to look at the age of some of these players because I think when you look at the likes of Jeff and Robbie, they're kind of in and around coming into their prime of their career, and when you're in that's when you really have to make the money. And I know people that say footballers make ridiculous amounts of money, and they do in comparison to the rest of us. But at the same stage, they also have a life which costs a certain amount of money, and they only have a certain few years to make hay, so to speak. They've only another 5 or 6 years left, maybe you could say. So this is the time for them, especially at this age in their prime, to kind of get the best contract maybe of their career, and they've got families to think about in the rest of their lives as well. And as we've said before many times, we're watching Man City here. There could be one tackle made and a player's career could end in a second. So you kind of have to understand from their point of view as well, I think.
Yeah, Jack, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's hard to know whether they have chosen to sit out tonight because of that. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's very hard to say with them. I don't know. I know Robbie Brady played some of the internationals there. He played against Gibraltar and them, but I don't know. Has he got much more time left in his international career? Yeah, that goal. I don't know. Has he got many more years left for Ireland? We're not hearing of a lot of young Irish fullbacks or wingers coming through. So maybe he will be used for a couple of more years. But I'm sure if there was younger players coming through, if there was younger backs to take his position, they'd be given the nod. I think anyway. But he has shown what he's made of over the last few years, and it's actually 4 years ago today since he scored that goal in Lille that gave us the win against Italy. So with things like that, we can't overlook him either. But I'd like to see another few years in him, and I think he could get a decent move from Burnley. I'm sure he could play for a top championship team.
Yeah, but at the same time, do you really want them playing championship football when, obviously we want our Irish players playing at the highest level? And as Will said, he's coming into his kind of twilight years where he needs to be playing at the top level as best he can. Obviously with Burnley, I don't think Burnley suit his style of play either. But, it's like he was, as I mentioned earlier, he was forcing Jeff out wide right. He doesn't play there, so I think Jeff wants to go somewhere where he's going to be played in the middle, and he'd be starting every week, and that's why he has to pick his move very carefully, like Robbie Brady as well. If Robbie is to go anywhere, because as I said, he's extended his stay by another 12 months, and I know him and Hendricks are our best mates. Um, so he might decide to stay there because he likes to play with him. But if he's thinking about bettering his career and going down as an Irish legend, um, he probably needs to go somewhere. Like an AC Milan move or something like that might be an absolute game changer for him. You know, people might take him a bit more seriously. People on the international stage might be more aware of who he is. Not that I'm saying, you know, when you hear a Burnley play, it doesn't really strike, you know, fear in your heart, especially as like Ireland fans when we go up against someone, say it's Chris Wood or something. It doesn't strike fear into us. So we're not like, oh no, our defence are going to be worried about him type of thing. When we played New Zealand, we weren't. We said, all right, he might get a couple of chances, but we should win this game comfortably enough. Whereas with Burnley, it's as I say, you don't really. No one there makes you go, oh my god, you know what I mean? And I think if Jeff went to AC Milan, there'd be more eyes on him. I think people would be more afraid of him, and he'd be more of a threat that way. I think anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, I couldn't see there being another Premier League move for him, to be honest. I don't know about you, but I couldn't see any other see him fitting into another Premier League team. Maybe AC Milan would be the best option, given, you know, like you say, the fear into the opposition. Playing on the continent, obviously, it'd be a huge experience for himself. But I don't think there is a Premier League move for him, to be honest. You know, I think he'll have to go abroad if he wants to get that top level experience. Do you think any other Premier League club would take him, or Robbie Brady, or the two of them?
Are you asking me or Will?
Either or, whatever you both think. But
Go ahead, Will.
I would say it would probably be a side like maybe a Southampton. West Ham are always looking for a bargain. I think I'm disappointed for Jeff, especially, you know, like when I heard that AC Milan line, straight away my mind just went, agent's done a good thing there. He stoked the fire. People are going, what? Take notice, and you'd be surprised at the moves that come out of these things when agents do that. That, you know, all of a sudden it flicks up on Google searches and all this sort of stuff. And I think it'll be very good for Jeff's career. Like, I think it's brilliant for Irish players to go away. We've seen a trend in the past couple of years with British youngsters. I know Jeff's not really an Irish youngster, but going away to Germany and stuff, it's very good to get out and learn a new style of football, and it brings new things. I don't know. It's a difficult one because Jeff and Robbie, I was a bit surprised by their moves to Burnley. Robbie especially. After the last Euros, I thought Robbie was kind of primed to kick on to the next level. I thought another club of a slightly different style of football would have taken Robbie and tried to kind of mold him into kind of going to the next level with his game. And when he signed for Burnley, I was very confused because he's not really your typical Burnley player. And I was a little bit disappointed in it as well because I think he had such a great Euros for Ireland. And he has a little bit something special about him, I think, that maybe we don't have a huge amount of in the Irish team. So I was a bit surprised at that. I thought he would have went to a bit more of a footballing side. So with Jeff and Robbie, I feel they're kind of almost in the same boat a bit. Where they could end up, as I said, maybe somewhere like a Southampton. West Ham just seem to be signing foreign players at this stage because of, and again, that's down to agents. But you never know where things could go up. You know, the sort of team that I could definitely see them fitting into would be somewhere like Fulham with Scar Parker in charge, a good guy to work under. He has a bit of an Irish connection with Harry Arter. You never know, and I could see them fitting in quite well in Fulham. Obviously, their championship.
Just heard championship. I haven't heard that for a couple of seconds there.
Who knows? But that would be quite a good move for them. Paul, I know they don't really want them at a clear end, but you don't want them either being at a Premier League whipping boy, because that just destroys their confidence as well. So you'd almost prefer them to be at a top championship side that's winning, that's competing.
Or a team coming up. A team coming up wouldn't be a
So
bad
it'll
thing.
be really interesting to see what moves they get out of that. We'll be watching them this summer. Well, that's what I mean. Like Fulham. Sorry, I mentioned Fulham there. They're thereabouts in the championship, and so we'll have to see what happens in the championship. A team coming up, if they were to come up, yeah, I think that'll be a perfect
West Brom.
match for the two of them. West Brom, again, potentially, they'll have a bit of money to spend. Again, it depends on the teams coming up as well, because of, from what I've been hearing from abroad and stuff, is that teams are very wary about spending money this summer. Chelsea seem to be the exception, because clubs are worried about what the financial markets have in whole or have in store. So I think it might be a bit of a lean summer. And when teams come up, obviously they get the nice big war chest, as they like to call it, for getting into the Premier League. But then there's usually a decision made with those teams, and it'll be taken, right, where are we going to go? Are we going to go top tier, spend everything and go for it? Are we going to go middle tier, try and do it out, and see where we get to? Or are we just going to accept that we're going to go back down, save our money, go back down again, and build on where we've been going? So again, the other thing I suppose the Irish guys have got is that they're free transfers. They'll get nice big sign-on fees. But overall, they should be a relatively cheap transfer. They've got Premier League experience. So yeah, they could definitely be targets for clubs coming up, I think.
Yeah, well, someone just had a comment there about Seamus Coleman, Matthew Larney. It's a bit off topic, but what's your opinion on Seamus Coleman's performance yesterday? I thought he made some great tackles. I'll let you just talk about that. I've already been talking about Seamus earlier on today on a podcast, so I kind of went on about it already.
No, have you?
Yep. So the one you just want to talk about him?
Yeah, Jack, do you want to go?
Yeah, no problem. And yeah, he put in a serious performance yesterday. He really is a leader in the Everton squad. There was several times there he just held Mane. He had him under control for the entire game. And usually Mane is the outlet for Liverpool. He's the one, he's making the runs, he's breaking through, and he's the key to every attack. But yesterday there was very little seen of Mane. Liverpool overall yesterday were very poor going forward, I thought. But in fairness to Seamus, he held them back. He did his job yesterday. He got his man of the match, which was well deserved. But I think Everton were very well organised yesterday as a unit. I think overall they were very solid. I know teams are still rusty coming back. They're not at their best yet. But to see someone like Seamus on such good form, only just back, and with the setbacks he's had in his career, with his leg break and stuff, I think it's fantastic to see an Irish international putting in those sort of performances. And he's certainly going to be, excuse me, key for Ireland going forward as well. I don't know, what do you think, Will, about his chances going forward for Ireland and his Premier League performances? Do you think he's still key for?
Yeah, I think it was a real statement. I think you've got to look into it in a couple of ways, though. Like, I think I'd say Liverpool, it was a difficult game to get up to. I know it was the derby, but I suppose they almost kind of feel like they've won the league. And they're just going to fall across the line, I think, really. For Everton, look, I'm sure they were gunning to put in a performance. Paul will correct me here, but I think, is Seamus the only player in the squad to have experienced a win over Everton, or there might be one more?
No, you're right.
So
maybe Leighton Baines as well.
Leighton Baines, yeah. So they were well up for that yesterday. Liverpool, it's derby, but I can understand why it's maybe a little bit harder for them to kind of, they've done the hard work, in fairness to them. I think Seamus as well also was laying down a marker for the new boss. as in, don't be forgetting about me. We saw Matt Doherty against West Ham Saturday evening, I think it was. Played very well. I think he got an assist as well in one of
Yeah.
the goals.
Yeah, the second one.
So Seamus is kind of going, Stephen, Kenny, don't forget about me. I'm your captain. Look at me yesterday, man of the match against, the champions to be Liverpool. I thought it was an excellent performance by him yesterday, and you could really see him just hunting down players on that wing. And it was really good to see because, we want to see the Irish players do well, and having him and Matt and together doing well, it's good for Irish football, and hopefully we can find a way to integrate both of them into the team. It could be some right wing, right flank.
I think as well with Seamus, it's so annoying. People who just don't watch him week in, week out, going, oh, he's finished. That's because Mark Doherty's scoring every week. Matt's playing much further forward. I think under Ancelotti, Seamus' job has been very much defensive, and he is a better defender than Matt Doherty. I think that's evident in any of the games Matt Doherty's played for Ireland. He hasn't done well defensively as a fullback, but offensively he has been good. And he is better than Seamus going forward. But that's because he's younger. Seamus, when he was up, well, I wouldn't say till he broke his leg, because he was still doing things after that. People just weren't going on about it as much. He obviously lost half a yard, but he was still quick getting up a play. But the problem is he was linked alongside Walcott, who never gets back. So Seamus was always never really allowed to go past Walcott because Walcott wouldn't track back. So he was stuck. Whereas when he had Morales previously, Morales would have got back for him. Not so much towards the back end of Morales' Everton career, but before that he had him tracking back. And it's funny. I even remember Phil Neville coming out when he played for Everton and Seamus. I remember they had that infamous spat on Twitter with Phil Neville and Seamus when Seamus was really young, and he was saying, "Oh, I did all your running today," because he was basically doing the job of two people for Phil Neville because he was getting on a bit. You know what I mean? But people go on about Seamus as if he's like some sort of elf fella who's like 38. He's 31. Okay, as I said, he might lost half a yard, but he's captain of Everton. He's captain of Ireland. Whether that's club captain, whatever way you want to look at it. Any of the bigger teams, any of the bigger teams. I haven't seen the goal; it hasn't come up for me. But any of the bigger teams that Everton play, Coleman starts, and that's because he's much better than Sidibe defensively. And you got to look at it from that point of view. Are Ireland going to be more defensive against most teams? Probably. Would I like to see Matt Doherty? Oh, brilliant by Maris. Would I like to see Matt Doherty play? Yes, but I'd like to see him play in front of Seamus. Like Will said, if you could find a way to fit the two of them in the same team, would be brilliant. I think Seamus has to be playing if he's fit. He's our best right back. If you're playing in a 4 and you have a right back, Seamus has to be that for me. I would love to see Doherty play in front of him though, and that's what Kenny needs to kind of figure out. He's already made contact with Seamus, told him that he wants him to be his captain. He appreciates all his values as a man and as a player. So he's obviously a big fan of Seamus as well. So don't rule him out. Like I know you used to aren't, but a lot of people are saying that you won't get a look in. I think last night he showed that he's still well capable against probably, arguably this season, the best attacker in the Premier League, because I think Mane's been absolutely unbelievable this season.
Yeah, that's true. He has been incredible. And do you think that 5 at the back is an option for Ireland? If there was 5 at the back, could you see Coleman and could you see Doherty outside him? Or would you see Doherty as further forward like a winger?
I could see Seamus fitting in, and everybody's been going on about this fantasy formation with Coleman on the right side of the 3. But he's done it for Everton under Ancelotti. And Sidibe's played that wing back role. So he can do it if we need him to, but you got to remember, we still have 3 good centre-backs there with Duffy, Egan and Clark. So is he going to drop one of them and play a 3? So that's another thing you have to take into account. If you're playing right, like as I said about Seamus, he's the best right back, but if you're talking right wing back, Doherty's better because that's the position he plays. It's slightly different. It's slightly altered, but it encourages Doherty to get further forward. And you got to look at the team that Doherty's playing for, Wolves as well, the midfield that he's playing with. Because if you look at Everton's midfield yesterday, it's absolutely shambolic. You've got Gomez and Davies in there. Gomez is brilliant. but he's rusty. He's been injured. He obviously had that bad injury from. Is this a goal again? No. He obviously had that bad injury from Son that time. But you know, you look at Wolves midfield: Joe Moutinho, Ruben Neves. You know, their managers really built a good midfield there. I think that obviously helps Doherty, and obviously they've got a great centre forward up there, and Jimenez as well. You got Jota and all these good players. They've built a really strong team there. Whereas I think with Everton at the moment they're in transition, so it's hard for Seamus to stand out in the team anyway. You know, he's playing with the likes of Iwobi in front of him. As I mentioned, Walcott never gets back for him, and he's struggled. You can see him roaring at the likes, like if he has Bernard in front of him, generally he plays well. But when he has the likes of Walcott and stuff in front of him, he doesn't tend to get forward as much. I don't know if it's a tactical thing or it's the fact that if he goes past him, he knows that Walcott's not going to cover him behind.
Yeah, I think. Listen, I think when it comes to the two of them, it's the old kind of adage of horses for courses. It depends on who you're playing against, and again, there's so many factors that the usual football fan on Twitter doesn't take into account. Managers see these players week in, week out, or international managers even will be scouting them and will be hearing different things from the players themselves, from the managers at the clubs about players' fitness, players' fatigue, stamina, how they are, etc. So all that has to be taken into account when it comes to selection, who you're playing against. If we're playing in Denmark or we're playing in Gibraltar, it could be a very completely different setup. We're talking about 3 at the back, 4 at the back. It'll be interesting to see what Stephen employs. Do we have 2 systems? Can you have a backup system? Could be very hard to do in international football because you've so little time with the players to kind of, get one system done well rather than have 2. But it could work. But yeah, I hear what you say about Doherty and Coleman. Coleman being the better defender, but it depends on what you want out of the game.
Yeah.
And as well, I suppose it depends on Matt. Players will say certain things to the media about they'll play anywhere or whatever, but they'll be talking to the manager and saying about how comfortable he feels playing, say, an orthodox right side midfield.
So Var's giving a pen there. Sorry to cut you off, Will.
Oh,
yeah.
You'll continue. I was just saying,
so that's 3-0. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No. As I said, it's just I think it has to come down to the system. Obviously, we're playing. Yeah, it does suit Matt playing 3 at the back. Do I think we have 3 decent central defenders to play that system? No, I don't think so. So I think that could be quite hard. I think Ireland probably will stick with 4 at the back. So then it's right. Do we try and pigeonhole Matt into right side midfield ahead of Seamus? Does that work? It does give you an attacking option with also a defensive option because they are, 2 more defensively minded players, even though Matt is superb going forward.
Just want to shout out Ross Cadwallader.
Look, it's a bit of an enigma to work out, but I think there's time enough to do it.
Sorry, Will. Just someone was asking there in the comments. Ross was asking who's the penalties to Man City. It's 3-0. Man City there. Bad tackle on Aguero. VAR gave a penalty and Mahrez gets a second goal of the game there. So it's now 3-0 and I think this one could be 6-7-0 going into half time. Obviously 3-0 at the moment. Yeah. But
Aguero has gone off injured as well.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Will. I think Jesus will get a couple of goals. He's on now for Aguero.
Am I right in thinking this is the first game?
Burnley's first game back.
Am I right in thinking this is the first game with more than 2 goals in the first half?
What was the Southampton final score the other night? I think they got 2 in the second half. I think you're right. But just to go back to what you're saying there, with Stephen Kenny, the fact that he's had some of those younger lads, Masterson, Collins, O'Shea and stuff like that, they might get fast-tracked into the first team to suit Kenny's system. You never know, especially for Nations League games. He knows what he's going to get from Duffy and Egan and Clark as well. But after that, you don't know what you're going to get. Like the likes of Kevin Long and all should be shipped out. They're not doing anything, just sitting on benches in Burnley and never playing. Should not be anywhere near the squad. Okay, you can say he's playing in a Premier League squad, but is he playing? He's not sharp. even Jimmy Dunn, if he starts getting a run with Burnley, he could go on to do good things as well. He was on loan at Hearts last, not this season, I think the season before last, and done well there as well. So, we do have some options that could come in and do the centre half, as you said, if you're talking about his system. But it'll be interesting to see what way can he kind of does things, and he operates. He's a great motivator and manager.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see who sticks around from the trusted team that kind of Mick and O'Neill seem to have. There was no real, unless you were scoring in the Premier League, like say Aaron Connolly, you were never really getting picked in the team. Even if Scott Hogan was getting picked and he was doing absolutely nothing for Stoke, and he got in somehow, and then he obviously moved to Birmingham and started doing well. He's probably suffered the most out of this break, but just in that regard, I hope Kenny just actually you see some new blood in the team mixed with some of the old, not a total overhaul, but I think the likes of James McLean and all needs to be shepherded out at this point.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my next points actually. Like you were saying about the likes of Darragh O'Shea and them coming through, people who were showing a bit of initiative, and those players that are kind of putting in the time, they're putting in the work, they deserve to be rewarded on the international stage, I think. But you're saying about McLean there, I still think, well, he's one of my favourite players, so I'm not going to say anything bad about him. But I still think that he's important for Ireland going forward. I know what Ross was saying there earlier about how the positive things Seamus Coleman did, it impacted his teammates, it drove them on. And I think James McLean has that sort of drive, the same that Seamus Coleman does, that sort of influence on the team. If he does something, he kind of drives on the team, he rises up the team, and he motivates them as well as Seamus does. And I think even going forward, that's important, as well. Obviously, he's a talented footballer, but I think just the drive he gives his teammates, he pushes them on. I don't know, do you feel different about him? Maybe you feel he should be moved on. But I think yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll say my bit. I'll let Will go first, but I'll say my bit about him after, all right?
Look, I think first of all, I don't think Stephen's going to be wary about. There's this whole thing of this clamour to get promote all the youth team players, promote the under-21s. They're doing great. There's a big difference between playing under-21 international football and senior international football. A big difference. And I don't think he's going to throw these kids in straight away. And I think he'd be right not to do that, because you can ruin kids if you do bring them in too quickly. You have to have kind of that little bit of experience, like we've seen Aaron Connolly get. Just those few games in the senior side at Brighton have matured him so much. Even just seeing his assist the other day was absolutely wonderful against Arsenal, and that to me was a sign of the kid beginning to grow up. He's beginning, he's got a little bit of nous upstairs. He worked the defender, he pulled him in close, he turned him, and it was a lovely layoff for Neal Maupay to get the winner. So I think the likes of that group, I'd say, Paul, that we have of about maybe 5 under-21s who there's a lot of kind of buzz about. We need to be careful with these. You don't want to ruin them. And also as well, the likes of James McLean, I'm not just going to discard him as well. James has done very well for Ireland. Okay, he might not be some people's favourite footballers, but he puts in a shift. He puts in 100%. I assume he's quite good to have around the squad. He's a live wire. And you need that mixture of players. You can't have the same 11 type players. You need your kind of maverick players, your hard-working players, your motivating players. So I don't think Stephen will make a huge amount of changes. I think what he might do is he might bring a certain amount of them in to continue to train with the squad. And then, when he has his friendlies, he'll get them involved in certain ways, small ways, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, maybe even a half, and then use the Nations League, see how we go with that. And also as well, see how these players are doing next season, because we're into another season. It's another year of their career gone. They're another year older. What have they learned? And are they starting to make an impression on their club side? Are they starting to get minutes on the pitch whether it be in the Championship, if they're out on loan, or whether they're in a Premier League squad. Are they starting to get those minutes? They all build up and kind of come into the kind of file that Stephen Kenny will have all these players, and they'll mature. And that's when we see some players will mature and take that next step to be ready to go at international level as maybe a substitute, then maybe start. A prime example of this would be if we look at somebody like Billy Gilmore at Chelsea, who came into the team just before the whole coronavirus. I remember seeing Billy a few years ago, and you've even seen him play now. He's tiny. He almost looks like an under 12, but yet he's matured enough, being around the squad, playing enough games, waiting for his chance, and then taking his chance and making it look effortless. And that's how to handle a youth player. That's how to get them in and to use them right. So when they do get their chance, they feel like they're a proper part of the team. They don't feel nervous. They don't feel like they're on the big stage. They feel like, I've done my time. I should be here now. And that's, I think, what we want to do with this group of Irish players coming through, because there is talent there, but it takes a lot to turn talent into, I suppose, full-blooded professionals.
Yeah, well, just to kind of go back on the McLean thing, yeah, it's all well and good, making a tackle and making gestures to the fans to get up off their seat. I'd rather he'd done something at the other end of the pitch, whereas he got the ball down and crossed the ball in for one of our players, because I found he was just hardly ever beating the first man for any crosses, and it just frustrates me. All these people going on about how good he is for Ireland. Have they got blinkers on? I don't know, but I just find it really confusing. McLean, he had that really good spell in 2017. I never really replicated that form after that, where he was scoring goals after the Euros, and he was really good, he was really influential, and he was probably our best player at the time. But he hasn't shown that form since. He's been up and down, moves from West Brom to Stoke, and just obviously the other stuff, the political stuff and something. I don't really want to get into that, but even with the coronavirus, when he put up that picture, and now he has to go off social media and stuff like that, he doesn't really do himself a whole lot of favours at the same time. I wish he'd just get his head down, focus on his football. You can see when he does his pre-season stuff and all, he works hard, he doesn't drink, he's always training. So many players say he's like the fittest player ever. Stephen Kenny's worked with him before, don't forget, at Derry as well, so he'll know what he's like. I think he'll still be in and around the squad. I just don't see how he should start, because or he could be an option at left back as well, because if he's just going to be there to lynch players over, that's more what he does. But I don't think he adds any more quality than any of those younger lads. What?
But again, Paul, the point is that if you have a younger lad who's on the same level as James but has the potential to go further than James, by putting him into the team too early, you could lose that potential then. And that's, I think, what you have to be careful about. James brings a certain amount of professionalism, nous, to the game. Okay, as I said, look, he's been up and down, his form has been up and down, but he'll always give you 110%. And you have to judge a manager who is, in the squad, watching training, talking to the players. And we don't have a huge amount of choice down the left-hand side. We've Enda Stevens, we've James, we've Robbie Brady, and then you're kind of fitting players into positions down there. So it's going to be one of those, I think, where, as I said, he brings players in. Some of these players can learn things from James, and I'm talking about on the pitch. With some of his football, he's a great athlete. He gets forward and he goes up and down all day. So I think it's just gonna. Yeah, I think he has his attributes. I think he does lack some things, but I'm sure James would be the first person to kind of say that as well. But in a position where we have a huge amount of luxury, yeah, I think James will be in the squad for the foreseeable future, for the next campaign anyway. And I think, the time he's put into the Irish team as well, he probably deserves it. So see what comes on from that.
Yeah, well, just David Salter there, who's a regular contributor, he put in a comment there. To be fair, if you can handle championship football, you should be okay at international level. Malumbi and Knight could be ready for a few minutes off the bench for a Nations League game, surely. I think they obviously could be, able to come off the bench. He's put in Troy Parrott, who's barely played a wink. he's played him against New Zealand, and he done okay, not great, but he done okay. And I think someone like Aaron Connolly, I think he's ready. I think you can put him in the squad. I think he's ready. He's playing Premier League. Obafemi's probably ready as well. You can put those two in. But as Will said, you have to be careful with the likes of Malumbi. There's so much pressure on him that if he doesn't come in and perform in the first game, people will be like, oh, he's not all that. He could have just had a one-off game or whatever. Same with Knight. If he's not playing the position that's, he plays that kind of number 10 or attacking midfielder where he makes the late runs into the box. Kind of Lampard, like, obviously not as good, but if they don't hit the ground running for the first few games, people might start getting on their backs a bit, and I can see that where you're coming from. If you're talking about the left kind of wing, I think if you played someone like Connolly on the left wing for Ireland, just at the moment, we could have Didsey up top with say Shane Long or something. But if you had Connolly on the left, running at players and scaring them, I think when McLean runs at people, they all know what he's going to do. Going to run down the line on his left foot and try and cross it. And it's just the same trick over and over again. If you can tell me I'm wrong or whatever. I love his tenacity, getting back and winning the ball. But most of the time, he's going back and winning the ball from his own, lack of getting past players or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I'm making him sound like the worst player in the world, and I don't mean to be. I actually like James McLean, and I would just like to see a better end product from and a bit more quality on the ball, more so than just flying into challenges to get the crowd up. You want to see more things like us scoring goals and stuff like that. At the end of the day, we want to start winning games to get to tournaments, and flying into tackles is all well and good, but we want to be scoring goals and winning games, and I prefer to see him celebrating a goal than celebrating a tackle type of thing. Do you get what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But what are your thoughts on it anyway? Because like talking about McLean, David's there mentioned in the comments about Knight and Malumbi.
Yeah, listen, Paul. I think there's no doubt that Aaron Connolly possesses more talent and potential than James has.
Go on. Go on. Hello? He must be gone. Well, Jack, do you want to proceed anyway what you were saying?
Well, I suppose we've touched on
yeah,
the
sorry, man. The delay on this is really bad.
You just go ahead, Jack.
Okay. Well, obviously David was saying about Malumbi and Knight. Like, there's no doubting their talent. Obviously, they're talented players, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them get minutes in the Nations League. I know it's a lot of pressure on them, but they're going to have to make that step up at some stage, and it might be an opportunity for Stephen Kenny to see what they're made of before it comes to the playoff game and all that. But you've said before the hype over Troy Parrott and that. Maybe that's just because he's at Spurs, because he's at such a big club, and he scored a few goals for Ireland underage. But there's very little talk about Aaron Connolly and the likes of Malumbi in comparison, and I suppose that benefits them in the long run. They're kind of flying under the radar to an extent until they make their big debut. Obviously, Aaron Connolly has proved himself for the Irish team, but do you think in the long run, the likes of Malumbi, Knight, like, are they going to benefit from not getting as much hype? Like, Troy Parrott hasn't done anything for Spurs to show us that he's capable of doing it for the Ireland squad.
Well, I think that there is the fact that when Troy came in, he didn't do that well against New Zealand, and it's a full international friendly game against the senior team, and he's not. Although he might be training with senior players at Spurs, he's not on the pitch, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? You have to up the match fitness and match sharpness, and I don't think he was. So it's kind of a bit surprised by Mick. I think he, for the first time in a long time, he kind of gave in to the fans and picked them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He even got into the Denmark squad then as well. So I think he kind of gave in to the fans a little bit there, where he's a bit more stubborn normally, and he wouldn't normally pick those times. Like he picked Connolly, and that was on merit. The likes of Troy, I didn't get it because, as Will mentioned already, about younger players and kind of hyping them up, and then when they come in and don't perform. Because I know a lot of people who have been saying to me, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about, that Troy Parrott fella. He was useless against New Zealand." I was like, it was just probably, he's had 5 minutes in the Premier League before that, at the end of a game when Spurs, Son scored a hat trick, didn't he, or Harry Kane? Mourinho gave him the ball. And that was his debut, like, so it wasn't like he came into a game where he was scrapping for a win or anything like that. So he hasn't really experienced that. I think Troy needs time. I'd much prefer having a Adam Ida, Michael Obafemi, and Aaron Connolly, who've played minutes in the Premier League and score goals. I mean, Adam Ida scored goals in the FA Cup. He started against Manchester United in Old Trafford. So these guys have more experience than him. But yeah, more in midfield. Everybody just goes on about Malumbi because they've watched him at the under-21s. He's getting rave reviews at Millwall, and rightly so, because he's been brilliant for them. All their fans absolutely adore him and would love to keep him. He signed 2 contracts for Brighton this season. The season's not even over. That's how much they want to keep him there. So yeah. It's positive signs, but they need to deliver on the pitch. And it'd probably be easier if they did come off the bench, or if we were doing well in the game and they come off the bench and just kind of settled into the team a little bit that way. I still think people like Jeff Hendrick and stuff like that won't be ushered out of the team like as quick as people think he will. I would actually like to see a bit of a spike in Jeff's form. I think a move could be good for him, just that little bit of freshness, and if you got a goal at a new club early on, I think I think he'd be a totally new player if that was the case. And then because there's midfield positions up for grabs there with Glenn Whelan. Let's be honest, at this point, I think he'll be out of the squad. I don't see him. I think at this rate now, I don't think he'll be in any squads. Unfortunately for him, not that he's done anything wrong, but I just think age is not helping him in that regard. James McCarthy coming back. Stephen Kenny's a big fan of his, but Conor Howrahan's in there as well. Doing well for Villa. I know they're in a relegation scrap, but there's a good amount of competition in that midfield, which will only benefit them. And Stephen Kenny will only pick them if they're doing well. There's going to be no favoritism. And I'm not saying that Mick picked anyone really favoritism. There was a couple of players, but not so much as O'Neill really had favourites. And it was annoying because he had players, but there's definitely way more coming through now than there was under Mick and under O'Neill, I believe, anyway. And they're all kind of coming to that right age now.
Definitely, yeah. And going back to that point about Parrott, when he did play against New Zealand, I had kind of bought into the hype out of more hope and optimism than anything. But when he came on, I was kind of expecting him to be, this sort of unreal player, having not seen much from him before. Or he did actually. I was expecting him to be a serious player. I was expecting to see him on the ball all the time. That was the kind of thing we were built up to believe, almost by the fans. I know it hadn't come from, the likes of Mick or any of these the coaches, but the fans had built him up to be, I was expecting him to be unbelievable, but that was kind of out of hoping for a win, hoping for a few good Irish players. But the likes of Aaron Connolly, he showed against, I think it was away to Georgia when we drew 0-0. He did some serious running when he came on. He tried for every ball. And I think someone like him who shows that passion, he definitely will bring something to the team. He's got there on merit, as you said. He's shown for Brighton that he can do it. And even Adam Ida, he's deserved a call-up, and he could get minutes in the Nations League, I think, off the bench. He definitely, well, I won't say definitely, but I couldn't see him starting in the next while. He certainly will get minutes off the bench, but what would you think?
Will sign at you there, I think, Jack. I would take that.
Sorry, Paul, lost you there. Just cut out.
All right. No, Jack was just coming to an end of what he was saying, and you kind of sighed. It was just funny because it sounded like you were sighing at him. Did you get that?
No, mate. Sorry, it's really bad tonight for some reason. I don't know why.
Oh well, he was just saying there about Adam Ida getting a run. I think it's going to be. I was saying this just before you actually joined, Will. If Norwich go down, it's going to be way more beneficial for Adam Ida. Even Simon Power there, who's at Norwich as well. Some of them players would be looking to kind of make an impression and get Norwich back up straight away. I know they'll have the parachute payments and stuff like that, but I think Ida's been on the fringes. I think Pookie will probably leave. Dermot came on there the other day. I think he's had some bad injuries. He may leave or he may stay. But that means that if one of the two go, Ida's next in line. He obviously likes him. He's played him a few times this season when the other strikers have been injured. He's next in the list, you know. So, and I think of all the players, he's got that physique. Whereas Obafemi, he's very muscly, but he's quite small, and Connolly's quite small for centre forward. Whereas Adam Ida is he's a big lad. You know what I mean? He can put himself about, but he's also quick. He's kind of similar in a way. The way he's built, similar to Lukaku. He's big, strong, but he's fast, and he's deceptively fast. You don't think he is, and he has these unbelievable feet. Like you've seen him at under 21s, and some of the stuff he can do with a ball, unbelievable. I just hope he goes on to have a really good career. I think next season is going to be a really big year for him. Obviously, with Kenny being Ireland manager, but as well, it needs to happen from a club level first of all before he gets near the Ireland team, I think.
Well, I think that's it. I think, one point that hasn't been made about Aaron Connolly, talking to a few players after his first game, obviously the away to Georgia, wasn't it? What they said was that he played without fear. And that's something that can be a positive for a young player who comes in. Again, depends on the personality. But they come in and they play without fear. So they just kind of go, yeah, whatever. They don't let the occasion get to them, and they just play as if it's, out in the green, and it's,
like Michael Owen against Argentina
wins, sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. So that can be the benefit of having a youth player, that they don't kind of quite get the pressure and everything that's on them. I think Troy might be a bit different, because I think we're talking about what people think, and naturally what's happened is he's a young Irish player. He's a striker, which is always the kind of marquee position. He's going to score goals. He's the new Robbie Keane. He's at Spurs. He's in the Premier League. And bang, it's he's going to be the next superstar. Means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. All it means is he's got good enough talent to be in the Spurs academy to make it to a certain level of youth team. That level hasn't been good enough to get in the Spurs team yet. That level hasn't been good enough to get in the Spurs team, lacking of strikers. Harry Kane injured, Son injured. So that to me means there's something else there. Now, I know from my experience, Jose is not one to give youth experience. But at the same stage, there's more, I think, to that story than we know about Troy and his issues with Spurs. Hopefully he's got good people around him, advising him to see what he wants to do. Hopefully, he could learn an awful lot of Jose Mourinho. It depends on what Jose's plans are for the next few years, whether he'll move on as he normally does or stays. And it's a big, big season next year for Troy. Massive, massive season. Adam is in a very different position. I think he's got a freer run into that team, because he is the backup striker, so he's above Troy when it comes to the pecking order, really.
Definitely.
Whether the managers would see them on the same level because he's at Norwich or whatever, but I think Adam would have more of a freedom on him, would have less pressure on him than Troy would. I think Aaron. I know people making comparisons between him and Duff, but he even seems to have a bit of a similar personality. I think Duff played a little bit that way, didn't kind of let things get to him, just kind of stuck his head down, ran at people, had tricks, and went for it. And that's definitely what we need. And then if we can add a striker in on top of that scores goals, we've got two good possibilities. There's another couple there, Michael Obafemi, Jonathan Afalobi, another couple of good prospects.
He needs a big year
Michael
at Celtic
Obafemi.
too.
Yeah, Michael Obafemi has a great chance at Southampton now, and it's time for him to step up because he's been given the opportunities. Don't think he played great the other night at all.
No,
and
still
he's got potential. He's got raw potential. He's got raw speed. But there was one time, was it the second half?
should have squared
where
it,
they broke.
Yeah.
Should have squared it, and he just took it into Rosette, and I kind of thought, what's that about?
No, he got tackled.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah, but I think didn't he sky it though? He could
No, I
have
went there
just
for a
easily
corner.
passed it across, and he skied it, and it was an absolute wasted opportunity. That's what we're talking about, experience and those. Well, yeah, but I think he completely took the wrong option to do whatever it was. Maybe we're not talking about the same challenge, but um, that's what we're talking about, getting the experience and then out, because it goes up another level at international level. Okay, not when you're playing the likes of Gibraltar and stuff, no, but when you are playing the likes of, say, the Czech Republic or the Austrias or the Switzerland or even bigger teams, France and Spain,
Slovakia even.
you chances like that or mistakes like that you can't afford. You can't afford to make those sort of mistakes. And when you do start making those mistakes, when you're in the team, especially for strikers, confidence is such a big thing. You get a striker. If Obafemi scores 2-3 goals by the end of the season, you watch his game rise. It'll give him the confidence to move on. If he's a good manager, he'll keep him grounded and not let his head get big and go, oh, look at me, I've scored 3 goals in the Premier League. It means nothing. You need to be doing that for 3-4 years consistency. But the talent is there if they're managed in the right way. But I think those lads have to realise, that sacrifices have to be made if you want to get to the top. And that's unfortunately where a lot of young footballers fall down nowadays, because they have so much money, they have so much thrown at them. They're given advice from people left, right, and centre who are out to make money for themselves. Um, Sacrifices have to be made. If you want to be Ireland's next top striker, you know, you've got to not go away on holidays. You got to spend an extra week at the training ground. You've got to, you know, make tough choices, and that's what it comes down to. So it'll be interesting to see what characters they are as well, and what sort of players we get out of them over the next 18 months or so.
Yeah, well, I think just with Obafemi there, he's the only one really that's been scoring against big teams in the Premier League. He's obviously got scored against Chelsea, which you'll obviously know. I think it was a bit unfair the other night. He obviously wanted to get the goal. He was being a bit greedy. He should have squared that ball across. But he looked laggy as well. He looked like, obviously all the players are only one game back, and they're trying to get fitness or whatever. He did look like a player who was just playing his first pre-season friendly. I think you'll see a bit more sharpness coming to his game. Hopefully he doesn't get injured between now and the end of the season. I think you'll see him once he gets a goal or two. I've never really seen him or Connolly get a run of games, especially after scoring goals. So that's exactly what they need. I think that's what you alluded to. Um, Dave Salters there, another good comment. So I got Jack. I'll get your opinion on that.
Yeah.
Didier and Shane Long are 32 and 33 respectively. Would you guys prioritise Troy or Ida off the bench for a few minutes? Would Obafemi be a realistic option on the right wing? Great chat, lads. Cheers, Dave. Thanks for getting involved.
Thanks very much, Dave. That's a good point, and Will, myself and Paul were saying beforehand about Stephen Kenny's interview. He said how some of these young players coming through can play off David McGoldrick. Obviously, as David said there, McGoldrick is 32, and McKenny has kind of made a point of the younger players playing off him. I don't know, does that mean that he's going to be the first name on the team sheet, or does it mean that it's just an option? I don't know, but do you think that there's a way, or how would you structure the attack? Let's say McGoldrick is center of the attack. How would you revolve it around him? Do you get what I'm saying? With young players or players already there.
Well,
Do you reckon?
if you're playing two up front, I think David is a great player for a young kid to play off, because I think David's game now is he's clever. He has a touch about him that can open things up. Maybe his speed isn't exactly what it used to be, but I think a young kid like an Adam Ida or Troy Park can learn. Either, yeah. Sure, that joke's been made before. I think they can learn a lot off him. Shane, again, look, when we're talking about international football, it's all about who's fit. Shane has had his injuries. He missed out the other night. He was injured again. It'll be interesting to see as he gets older how those injuries affect him. Do they pile up? Does he continue to get injured? Good question about who I prioritize. Right now, I'd prioritize Adam Ida, because I think he's got the more game time. And I just that's where I'd be going. There's something about Troy to me
there's talent there, but I want to see it brought out. I want to see him playing whatever that is. And look, I can't speak for him, but if that was me and I was at Spurs, I would be saying, Jose, either play me or send me out on loan because I want to play football. And I would be realizing that this next 18 months is a massive opportunity. It's a massive time in my career. And I'm not saying it's make or break, but it definitely, I think, will see the path that he chooses to go on to. If he has the talent that people say he has, he needs to be playing football. And he either needs to force his way into that Spurs team in some fashion, or get out on loan and score goals and show Jose, look, this is what I can do. Play me, or get a move somewhere where he is going to play. Because to me, I think Adam's gone ahead of him in the pecking order now, because he has been playing for Norwich and he looks closer to the Norwich team. And I suppose, yes, Norwich and Spurs are two different sides. If Troy was in Norwich, would he be getting the game time Adam is getting? That would be the interesting thing to see. So I said, to me, a loan move would be great for him. I think the right type of team as well. But yeah, I just want to see him. I hate seeing players wasting talent, and I've seen an awful lot of them over the past 10, 15 years in different club sides. You see youngsters going through. I've watched the Chelsea U team since about 2010, and they've had some great U teams, and players haven't got the chance yet. Fair enough, but also players haven't taken their chance. Players haven't kind of demanded they sit there. They're on kind of decent money, and the motivation was kind of, am I ever going to get into the team? Troy could be suffering a bit of that as well. Am I ever going to get into the team ahead of Harry Kane? Son is to me a very underrated Premier League player. Again, just has so many things about him and is so underwhelming. It just goes about his business. So to me, Adam, I think is the first one off the bench for me at the moment. Would Troy suit David McGoldrick maybe a little bit better? Possibly. But then I think Adam and Aaron would be a very interesting combo playing together as well. But then it depends where you play Aaron. Do you play Aaron on the left? Again, not to be going on, but Aaron has, if you're playing left wing, has your defensive side of your game improved enough to be playing at the international level? That's something you can look at players, especially when they're out wide, is they need to have that intelligence to know when to go, when to stay. Again, if you had Enda Stevens behind you, you'd hope Enda would be able to kind of coach them, mold them, and help them a little bit, because they're going to need help with that sort of stuff. If you're up front, you're playing alongside maybe somebody like David McGoldrick, then you've got a bit more of a hand. But there's maybe less to lose when you're playing up front. If you're playing left wing and you're not doing your job, you're not covering, that could be 1-0.
As well as that, there's no place to go hiding then as well. Was it up front when you're playing up with Didsey, you could go hiding if it's not going well. But whereas, on the left wing, as Will said, if you're not tracking back, if you're told to track back, you can be found out. And then if you're not doing the work,
oh nasty. Oh.
What?
It's 5. Is it? Oh, it's offside, is it?
Oh, was that ruled out? No. 5. Yeah.
Foden didn't look happy there. Yeah.
I'm still a minute
this
behind.
Is now turning into a training game for Manchester City.
So Foden again. It's only gone in
he's
now.
on
It's only gone
well
in now for me. I lost my train of thought there. What was I about to talk about? Oh yeah, so on the left wing, you say there about players getting found out. I think McLean's been found out for not being quality on the left side, and that but in his defence, he's the only one who's maintained that position on the left, because there's been no one maintaining a position on the right. So we will give him that. Whereas, what?
I like the way you say it. You'll give him that. It's fair enough, I suppose. Fair enough.
What do you like about him? Do you like the fact that he's patriotic and he's Mr. Ireland? Is that why you like him? Because in terms of football, ability, there's not many in that Irish team that would be worse than him.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. His footballing ability isn't the best. A lot of why I like him is his kind of his ability to motivate the team, and he does seem to give them that extra bit of a boost. And I think that's why I'm such a big fan of him, But there is certainly an opening for Connolly, coming through, and he has shown that he's able. But with Troy Parrott, would you see it as well, I don't know, is he content at Spurs, what he's doing, just, sitting on the bench? But do you think that's a bad sign, or is it too early to judge,
Well, with Troy,
going forward?
with Troy, I thought you were finished. Sorry. With Troy, he's 17. We have to remember that, and he was
Well,
only
yeah,
just gone
true, yeah.
17 when he was given his debut. The fact that he's been scoring goals has gotten bumped up the queue a little bit quicker than anybody else. He was regularly scoring a youth league and whatever, the under 21s and all that. He's been bumped up fairly quick. But the thing is, and obviously we've seen that silly video that was going around. I think we've all seen it by now. That's the type of stuff he needs to cut out of his life. Will, you know Mourinho from working with Chelsea, and I can imagine he doesn't condone that type of stuff, and he would have seen that. Like, if we've seen that video, he's definitely seen that video. Jose has, like, do you know what I mean? And this is the type of thing he needs to cut out. I hear it an awful lot. The people he hangs around with and stuff like that. I don't know them. Oh, Will's gone there. It must be because we started talking about Chelsea. But I don't understand why he's not being a bit more. He has a great opportunity at Spurs there. He just signed a good contract. I just hope it isn't getting to his head, because there's players there that are beneath him and could really get ahead of him very quickly if they're given the opportunity, like the likes of Ida and stuff like that. If they were given the hype behind them as Troy was, I would love to see Troy go on and do really well for Ireland. But the fear I have is he could go on to be another Gaza. That's my biggest fear about him.
Yeah, no, that I get you. Yeah, I suppose he is still fairly young. We kind of tend to forget that he is so young and he does have a lot of time left. But how do I say now? Ida has shown the ambition, hasn't he? He's shown on the biggest stage that he can do it. Obviously, there's different circumstances, but Will said, with these young players, when there's money thrown at them and when they're getting advice from different angles, it can be hard for them to go forward. And unfortunately, it is a stumbling block for a lot of these younger players. Hopefully our players will kind of, keep on the track, and we have seen that with Ida and with Conley. They've shown ambition, they've shown what they're made of. They're not afraid. Ida with Norwich, he has he hasn't been afraid to run at defenders. And I think that same thing with Conley, that fearlessness will benefit them going forward. Do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think that what they need fearlessness, but I think it's going to be a lot easier for someone like Ida, or Connolly or Obafemi, if someone like Didzy's taking a lot of the hits for them up top. Like, if Didzy's the target man, they're playing off him, they're really going to benefit from that. Whereas if they're supposed to be the target man, they're not going to benefit from that, and I think they would really struggle. You look at James Collins for Luton when he played against Georgia. Like, he kept on trying to get the ball, kept on trying to be the target man, but it just wasn't happening for him. And Didzy in the reverse fixture at home was our best player, got a standing ovation. The only thing he didn't do was score. He was very, very good. I think that was the kind of, everyone took notice of Didzy from that game against Georgia. I think James Collins, he was unlucky, and then obviously Connolly came on for Collins probably 10 minutes too late at that point. But I think it's if they're giving someone like Didzy to play alongside, I think it would be brilliant for him, because he's not only a good target man, he's technical. He can find a good pass. He can bring other players into play, but I also think he gets us up the pitch quicker. So if we're trying to get up the pitch and we need players to get up and support, Didzy can take the ball in. He's got the strength, and he can play players through balls and stuff like that. And we've got pace there now. You've got Long, who is still pacey at 32. You've got Connolly, very pacey. Obafemi, very pacey. And it'll be interesting to see what way Afolabi starts next season as well, because obviously the season's done at Celtic. He was on loan at Dunfermline, played 1 or 2 games. I think he scored 2. I think he got 1 assist, scored 2 out of about 3 or 4 games, which wasn't bad going. Really starting to kind of show signs of what he can do. So again, he could be another one if he's banging him in at Celtic. You know, if Edward stays at Celtic or not, it could be big for Afalabi. You know, because Lee Griffiths is in and out of the team, but he's not a regular mainstay. So we have got options there, and as well as that, I think maybe Stephen Kenny was more reluctant not to give Mick Adamida at the time because he wanted him for the under-21s. Maybe that was an option too, and then he wanted to keep. He wanted to keep, or he wanted to let Troy go with the senior team because he wanted Adamida and stuff like that to plus him. Although they already had Aaron Connolly as well, but we've strength in numbers everywhere at this point in most positions. The only position I worry about for the future is left back because we've got Leo Connor at right back, and I think he could go on to be a really, really good player. But he needs to start getting into the team at Celtic, or again maybe move on again. Because they've got a few good right backs at Celtic at the moment, and it'd be difficult for him to just break in unless someone gets an injury. And then if he gets his place, it's all about keeping the team, keeping his spot in the team. And you know, centre backs we're good for. It's just left back I'm kind of worried about. I think we're all right in the wings. You know, El Bazzetti as well. You know, he was done well at Waterford, and he's after coming back from England, and he's done well at Lincoln, and he's really good for the under-21s as well. So if he can start playing well, maybe we get to move up to the Championship. Because he's still quite young as well. He could go on to good things, and just kind of looking all around those under-21s and kind of what we have now. There's a good strength and depth that we haven't really had before. There's strength and depth in terms of goalkeepers coming up, but the problem is how many of them are going to start making it at club level, and that's the biggest thing because Darren even is, you know, kind of on the bench now at West Ham, not starting. Fabianski's obviously ahead of him and will be, if ever he's fit, he's always going to be ahead of Darren at that club, unfortunately. And then, so you've got Kelleher, Travers,
Depends,
Westwood.
Paul, depends where West Ham end up next season.
Well, that's true too. But, you know, he signed for them hoping that they'd be a Premier League club for the next 3-4 years. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if they do go down, he probably will be the number one there. But I think even if they do go down, he'll be straight back up with them. But yeah, if that's the case and he's playing first team football, happy days. But I'm just thinking of the keepers coming up underneath him. There's no one in there that could step into that keeper situation. I know Travers and I know O'Hara have played. Yeah, they've played a couple of friendlies, but friendlies don't cut it for me. And it's
a very different position as well because goalkeeper, you know, you'd want to be talking about a 25-year-old who might be at a championship club, a 24-year-old even, who might be pushing Darren for maybe, you know, a game or two. But the lads who we have, yes, they're great talents, great prospects, but nowhere near ready for any sort of kind of first team football at international level. But like we said, we've got to just, you know, if we can get one of those three up to playing regular Premier League football, then, you know, that's really all you need as a goalkeeper, and you can have a backup. As we've seen, yeah, I think you said left back is definitely somewhere that we struggled over the past few years. And considering we had some really good left backs, it's interesting. It's something, but who knows? Because as well, you have players that come through who are like developers who all of a sudden, or, you know, a player who we'll go back to who's come through the system in the UK who might be second generation or something like this. So there's definitely, I think we've definitely got a better setup than we've had in the past 15 years at youth level. So there's more positives than there is negatives, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was sorry if I came across negative. I wasn't.
No, you didn't. I'm just saying, just overall, that's all.
Oh, okay. Well, like as well as that, there's still players like that lad Connor Noss at Mönchengladbach as well. He's on the fringes there as well. He's another one we forgot to mention. He's on the fringes of the first team there, and I think Kenny would be eager to get him in quickly and kind of end all the kind of doubting and all that type of stuff. Because that's always going to go on now after
Ryan Johansson.
After Royce. Actually, someone just said Ryan Manning, who we actually forgot about. Nick Antonio, good man. Nick Menezes, actually, we likes to go by Nick Antonio. Someone actually had a comment there, Dave. Dave's coming in with the good comments tonight. I don't know if one of you want to answer that. Regarding the McLean debate, he reminds me of Kilban towards the end when he lost a bit of pace and dynamism. Killer was used in centre mid and left back Ryan Manning as a future left back. So he actually said it before, Nick.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough comment. I think Kevin will know that as well. Like Kevin's game is all about pace, and he had a huge amount of heart as well. Like James, I think he may be a little bit more nous on the ball, but was always a very direct player. James, could he go back to left back? I don't know whether.
Rolanda's younger than him.
Yeah. Well, if we needed a cover, he has played there before. The worrying thing I think with James is just sometimes his positioning, and his. You need to be quite strict about what you're doing and holding yourself. And sometimes James might get a little bit too far advanced when you're playing left back. You have to be a bit restrictive. But again, it depends on who the opposition is, and it's better to have choice. So I think he might become. I think if Aaron comes in at left, then I think James might become a bit more of a squad player and can fill a gap where needed. And maybe it'll go the other way where Aaron starts and then James comes on. Because you look at it the other way too. If you had it that way, James would be a bit of a frightening prospect off the bench, because we know James's game is all about huff and puff, and he'll just drive the ball straight at you. And yeah, okay, as you said, Paul, it's a bit of a one-trick pony at times where he likes to beat a player on the outside, but there's nothing wrong with that. 20 minutes to go, we're struggling for a goal, you're up against a right back who's huffing and puffing. James comes on, he ain't the sort of player you'd want to see coming on, so there could be that benefit to take out of it as well. So that'll be interesting to see about where James goes. And Ryan Manning, yeah, he's another good prospect as well. So yeah, overall, I think it's looking like there's a nice crop coming through.
How are you feeling about it, Jack? Just all that with Manning and obviously your best mate, McLean.
Yeah. No, I do agree with you. Obviously he's, as people have said, he's one of the fittest athletes around. He's an incredible, physique and stuff. He has the athletic ability. Obviously, his footballing ability wouldn't be popular with too many. I won't say too many, but with a lot. But I think he could go into left back. We've seen even at Celtic the likes of Johnny Hayes. He was played at left back. And he wouldn't be a natural left back. And when he did it, I think he carried it out well. Obviously, they're two different players, but I think James could slot back into left back if he had to. And like you say, he's a dangerous player going forward. If he was to play in that wing back position, coming off the bench, he has the speed, he has the athletic ability to drive at defenders. But I definitely think it's a possibility. Obviously, I want to see him stay in the team. So if it meant he had to go back to left back, I think obviously he wouldn't be as effective as kind of spearing the attack down the wing, but it's definitely a possibility. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's just like I don't see him being in the team for much longer. Obviously, Kenny knows him very well. Had him at Derry, but I think a lot of people actually will be looking for McLean to be out of the team, not out of the squad, but just out of the first team. Again, yeah, he has good values in terms of an Irish man and how he carries himself within the Irish squad and the Irish team. That people would look at that. I mean, in terms of his ability and what he does on the ball, I think players are looking and go, well, I'd probably have done better there in that certain scenario. I just, because he's done so many things over and over again, it makes me think that he doesn't seem to think like he's doing that much wrong when he is playing for Ireland. And I love all his heart and his passion and stuff like that, but that doesn't win you games. It might get the crowd up for 5 minutes or whatever. But yeah, he could be a good option off the bench, but I would rather have someone like Connolly who I know will come on and create and scare the team. I won't be looking just to make a big tackle for everyone to make a big song and dance about it. That's the biggest thing that annoys me about McLean, and everyone who gets behind it being like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. Well, is it brilliant? Because has it affected the game really? In my opinion, it hasn't. It's that type of thing I'm talking about. I love how much he loves Ireland and all that type of stuff, how much he loves Celtic and all that. I get that. But I'm just talking purely about football and on the pitch, and his performances, especially of late, haven't been great. And people need to address the situation that his performances for Ireland have not been great, and too many people hang on the patriotic McLean and does this and that. And yeah, I mean, I bought into it a few years ago, but I'm over it now, and I just wish he would just focus more on just getting better across and getting better at taking on players in one-on-one situations, or just. But he could be a victim of tactics as well, though. You know, I can imagine it could be very, very hard when you're told, okay, we're up against Denmark and you're not allowed to go past the halfway line until we have the ball up in their half. And how often would Ireland have the ball up in their half, especially under O'Neill or Mick? So I can see it from his point of view too. So I'm not totally like, you know, putting a gun to his head and saying he's terrible, because I feel like I'm maybe being a bit harsh on him. But at times, and I think you'll have to agree, where you're looking at him and going, you know, I'd have done better there in certain scenarios, like as yourselves.
I think that's a phrase we've got to stop using, because you wouldn't have, right? Let's be honest. He's a professional footballer, and yes, he does make mistakes and stuff. And I see what you mean, like, but there is sometimes credit in the energy he brings to a side and getting the crowd behind you. There is a benefit to that. You might not think it might be that much, but some players, and that's what I'm saying about having different types of characters in a team, they could be the sort of characters that you need to motivate other players around them who bring the best out of other players. And that's what James's spirit brings. As I said, I think as well, if we look at that position, we haven't been blessed with a huge amount of players there. So we have to kind of take that into account. And I think, you know, I'd say James is a fairly hard critic on himself, because he does love playing for his country so much. I'd say he knows his limitations of what he is as a footballer. Most footballers do. Most honest footballers do. Plenty I've talked to say to me, look, I need to be told to do X, Y, and Z. And if a manager doesn't give me directions, I'm bloody hopeless. But if I'm given the right directions, then you can see a very honest player become a very good player. And we've had plenty of them down through the Irish, you know, in the past 20 years. You look at some of Jack's teams, very average players in their club football, never made, you know, European Cup heights or anything like that. They would have played for, you know, kind of mid-table teams like a Palace or a Middlesbrough, you know, and don't want to offend any clubs fans, or like Villa or anything like this, but it's those sort of teams that, you know, we got a lot of Irish players out, but when they came to play for the national team, you can get another 5-10% out of them. I think James is one of those players as well. So I think he's done a good job for Ireland, and he's had his faults, but I'm sure he'd admit that as well, Paul. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think we can be too harsh on him. And I think as well, we look at his age now and where he's come to in his career. You know, there's going to be other options there as well. But I'm sure James will be one of those players who'll turn up and will be at every training session he's asked to be at. And that's what I love about the Irish team is that I'd say the majority, much more than other countries, the players we have love playing for their country. And, you know, if club football was to stop tomorrow, they'd still turn up and do it for free, I'm sure, like all of us. Whereas other countries close enough to us, I'm not sure that would be the same case. So, yeah, I think we can't go too harsh on him. He's given us some good memories as well. So, it'll be interesting to see where his career now continues on under new management.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, but unless you have anything more to say about McLean, I just wanted to go back on something you said earlier, Paul, about you know, Afolabi at Celtic and stuff. Do you see? I've heard from a lot of from some of the young English players coming to Ireland is a great way to show what they're about, you know, and to showcase their ability. But for young Irish players, do you think going to Scotland is a good option for them? Obviously, in the Scottish in the Premiership, you know, it's kind of a 2-horse race all the time, and you know, it's kind of one-sided. But do you think that Scotland is a good option for them? Do you think it's a good place for them to show what they're made of?
I think like he had options. I know that from speaking to his agent. He had options. He could have went to a few Premier League clubs and turned them down. He went to Celtic thinking he could get into the first team, I believe. When he did go there originally, he did get injured. He was playing for the under-21s and he got injured. I remember talking to him, and I think that kind of stop start this season. Do you know what I mean? Because he was doing well. He was off the back of the Euros, the under-19 Euros last summer in Armenia, wasn't it? So he came in from there and he was on a bit of a high, and then he came in and got injured then for the 21s, and I think at that point then he came in, he's done well for the reserves at Celtic, and he said himself, like Lee Griffiths and stuff like that, been brilliant with him. And he feels like he's ready to get into the first team. You know, I know his agent's probably just saying it, Joel. He's probably just saying it because it's his player, but he seems to think that he's better than Obafemi. Obviously, the two of them are at the same youth team at Southampton. He seems to think that he's actually better than Obafemi. It's just Obafemi's a bit more of a loudmouth, like as if he'll go up to the manager and say something, whereas Jonathan would just kind of wait for the manager to come to him, type of thing. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. But I think Afalabi, I think it was a good decision for him. I just think he's been unlucky. Same with Leo Connor. You know, the thing is, if Celtic start doing well in Europe and they're part of it, that's only going to benefit them as well at their age. You know, especially next season. So Celtic were unlucky as well to go out this year in the Europa as well. You know, they beat Lazio, who are on course. They beat them twice, home and away. I was at the home game, but they were like, and Lazio are on course to win Serie A. You know, so it's not like, and it wasn't their like reserve team or anything like that. So Celtic, like that, experiencing those big European nights will only be beneficial for them playing for Ireland then, because you know, the Aviva can be like that. Once we're playing well and we're winning games, you look at what the roof nearly came off when we scored against Denmark, and everyone was, you know, rushing the team on. Unfortunately, we didn't get that last goal, but we put Denmark to the sword and stuff like that, and they were intimidated. And you remember the old Lansdowne Will more so than you, obviously. Will, Jack, you probably weren't born, but like the atmosphere at those games used to be absolutely unbelievable. I was a kid, I was intimidated, even though I was going to watch my team, but intimidating kind of in a good way. You knew that the crowd were going to get behind the Irish team and make it difficult, and no teams enjoyed coming to play us at Lansdowne at all.
No, none at all. And our record there spoke for itself. Like under Jack, we went to God knows how many games without losing. It's the same. No team likes coming to Ireland, especially if it's a game where there's something on the line, because we do have the crowd. We do, and we even. I know we were saying there, but the Denmark game, you know, they were put off by the crowd. You could see that they had not, because. You know, that crowd kept going for the 90 minutes. And especially, you know, there was a bit of a slump in the second half, but then, and obviously they scored, and when we got that goal, the place just erupted. And you know, footballers as well haven't experienced too many of those stadiums. You know, in the Premier League, there's only a few I can count where the atmosphere is, you know, electric. Absolutely electric. You'll get a few on the continent, yeah, but in the UK, it can be kind of subdued at times. You'll get the odd chance, you know, if it's a big derby and that sort of stuff. Yeah, fair enough. But you know, I saw the difference that night easily. I've experienced it in some grounds across Europe as well. That you can see where it's a complete incredible atmosphere to go in and play, and that's another thing players have to contend with. So yeah, I think that's our 12th man, so to speak. And going forward, we gotta utilize that as best we can. You need every advantage we have, but yeah.
What about yourself, Jack? Like, do you think that now with Kenny there at the helm, if people are going to be patient as well? I mean, if he comes in, and we start off really well, that's going to be great. But those two Nations League games are going to be crucial for him, and just kind of, if we get 2 wins from those games or 2 positive results, and some of the younger lads are brought in, I think everyone will be on the Kenny train, so to speak. Whereas I think if we don't hit the ground running, he could be under pressure straight away, and I hope that's not the case. I hope he is given time, because it is going to be a totally different brand of football. And, you know, I was speaking to Patrick Hooban, who obviously played with him at Dundalk, and he was just like, I can't wait for him to come in, because he's just going to change everything. And I think he's actually been put in for an executive role within the FAI as well. So they seem to really rate either his knowledge, obviously him as a coach as well. I mean, it speaks for itself what he's done in Irish football. People go, oh, it's only Irish football. But he has to be given time. And if he's not given time, how can he do anything? But I think it'll all be for him. And what he's really good at is building a team atmosphere. And all the players that come, and Will said, they travel there for free to play for Ireland. So they'll obviously have that team atmosphere and that team spirit anyway. But it's about building that and adding quality to it and getting wins. And that's kind of what we need to start off with. But kind of my point being is, can the Aviva be the 12th man again, do you think?
Absolutely, I think so. Like you say, people will have to be patient with him. Obviously he's proven himself in Ireland that he's a fantastic coach, but people will have to be patient. Them first few games won't be easy. People have to understand that he won't walk in with this new team of under 21 players and start winning matches left, right, and centre. We have to get used to the fact that there'll be a bit of experimenting at the start. They'll be trying out these young players, seeing if they're able. I think though, looking back, I remember being at the Bosnia game, in the playoff in 2015. And like Bosnia weren't a bad team at all. And in the away leg, obviously, from what we saw the game with all the fog, it was a fairly even game and we came away with a 1-1 draw. But when it went to the Aviva, it was incredible. The atmosphere was unbelievable. And you could see that the Bosnian players were rattled by it. They're a fairly talented team. And in the Aviva, they couldn't compete with us. We beat them 2-0, obviously, Johnny Walters with the brace, but they couldn't compete at all. And we dominated that game and it was just fantastic, And I think Ireland kind of have that reputation, don't they? Obviously from Euro 2016 and from other competitions, the fans are given reputation, like the best fans in the world and all this, some of the most vocal and the most passionate. But I think when teams come to the Aviva, they're aware of this. And at the last game there, at the Denmark game, actually, there was kind of a march before the game. There was a crowd gathered around Slattery's and made a march all the way down to the Aviva. And it made its way down towards where the bus was coming in. There wasn't, the fans couldn't get too close to the bus, but there was certainly intimidation there. You know what I mean? The fans pulled together and like they were adamant on intimidating the Danish team and kind of getting under their skin if that was possible. And I think even going forward, there's definitely an opportunity there for the fans to pull together. Obviously, if there will be pressure on Kenny if things don't start off great. I know what you mean. Like you said, he could be under pressure from the very first game, but people need to pull behind him. Like people have before with Martin O'Neill, with Mick McCarthy. People had to be patient. They waited, and obviously with some good days, there were some bad days as well. But I think overall, once we're patient, see how it goes, and just support the team regardless. Support the team for the sake of the team, and leave the tactics to the manager.
Yeah, and this is it because everyone's an expert. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. Yeah.
Football. But it's just about giving the fella time. That's full time there now, 5-0.
Just on that, Paul, what's the most valuable thing in football?
Team spirit.
Time.
Well, you don't really get a whole lot of it.
You have, as in time to work with players. Stephen doesn't have an awful lot because he's an international manager. Yeah. He'll be doing a lot of background work, getting to know players and different stuff like that, and will be well prepared with Keith and Damien there. But time is the thing that he doesn't have an awful lot of. And unfortunately, the world we live in nowadays, football fans don't give a damn anymore. That there is no patience. They just expect their team to be winning 24/7. Irish fans are not as bad as that, and I think Stephen will get a bit of time. But yeah, I'm sure he will be praying that he gets a good couple of results, even if it's only 2 draws in the first couple of games. That to me will be a good way to start. Nice and easy, nice and steady, and I'd say he'll probably set the team up for that, and then try and be working things in the background to try and move on, push forward, maybe change the style of play a bit, get some of these kids elevated so they feel more comfortable in the squad. And as they progress and get a bit older, then we start to see the changes happen. But what he won't want is a 5-0 or something like that, because that would just be a horrendous start. I don't think it'll happen. I think, as I said, a couple of draws will be the way to go.
Well,
But time,
we've already beaten Bulgaria, Will. In that
yeah,
where our
and they're
B
a
team
handy
bet.
side to play because they're not very good defensively, and that's the one thing, that if you can get the crowd going, and you saw that night, they just fell apart because they'd been taken apart by England, I think, a few days previous, and
Yeah.
there was no soul in that team, which is a shame because I remember the great Bulgarian team of like '94 World Cup and some absolute world class players in it, and it's a shame that a country like that has kind of fallen down so far. But yeah, there can't be much better teams that you would want to play. So it'll be a good start in that sort of way, and fingers crossed we get off to the good start and we can get back to I'm sure everybody's been watching the reruns of the World Cups and the Euros and all that sort of stuff, and it unites the country, brings everybody together. There's a great feeling, and that's what we want to see, and hopefully we can all then get to experience a tournament, whether it's in the Middle East or the next Euros or wherever it is, because they're unique, and yeah, it's good for the country, which is something I think we all need after the past few months of what we've all had.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing that would be brilliant is if Stephen could somehow manage to get a little training camp with the team. Obviously, he's not going to get it before September because the teams will be doing pre-season and so on. And imagine, I don't see much of a break really between the end of the season and the start of the season, because they'll be straight in for pre-season. There's going to be Champions League and Europa League, and then they're going to have the Champions League and Europa League qualification. As well as that, which obviously comes sometimes during pre-season for some teams. So I would love for him to get a couple, like a week with the team. I think like Mick got, I think it was last May, he got like 2 weeks maybe a week or 2 weeks with the team. And they were just finished, but they all decided to go and turn up for that. And it was beneficial in ways, like there was a lot of players there that came in. Mick got a good look at them. I think Stephen would really benefit, especially if it's a change of style of play. If you could get a good amount of the players that he identified as the ones that he would like to see, because otherwise, as Will said, he gets a day or two with them, and that's per game, so per week per game. Sorry, and sometimes you could be playing 2 games in a week, so you get one training day. So it's difficult. They could be playing on Saturday, Sunday. They arrive to the team. Some of them, the players who are playing Saturday generally will come on Sunday evening, and then the players who are playing on Sunday will generally come either Sunday evening or Monday morning, and they don't generally train. They'll just come to training and watch because they played the day before. So there's those things that all accumulate, so you can't. Matt Doherty plays Super Sunday, for example. He wouldn't be trained then the next day, and he could be a key part of what Stephen wants to do on the right hand side, for example. So these are the things that people just don't seem to understand. They seem to think, you can put 11 players on the pitch and they'll do whatever you tell them to do. It's not as simple as that. Even Carlo Ancelotti had to build up a lot of time to set up what he did yesterday against Liverpool. He would have had a lot of time to be able to prepare that, to be able to organise that. Whereas, as I say, Stephen Kenny won't get that time. Hopefully he can get his point across fairly quickly, but that's why I can see some of the younger lads being brought through, because they have a know-how of the way Stephen already plays. Now I'm thinking more like a Darragh O'Shea type, not more so a midfielder. I think Darragh O'Shea at centre back, he's playing regularly in the Championship. A lot of our other players have been playing regularly in the Championship. I know he's young, but it's he seems like he has a good head in his shoulders. Not that the others don't, but he just seems more up to the task, I think. And I wouldn't say Stephen would have hesitation bringing him through. I wouldn't say he'd have any hesitation in bringing Malumbi through. He's already name checked him. Seems to really like Knight as well. But he also played Coventry ahead of Knight a lot of times as well on the under-21s. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him, and if West Ham stay up, will him and Cullen be getting a run? We were kind of saying that before Will came on. So there's lots of things to take into consideration before he does actually a ball is kicked or a squad is picked. I didn't even mean to rhyme that, but there you go. But yeah, I suppose we'll wrap it up because the match finished 5-0 City. It's been a good chat. I think people who got involved in the comments, I have to say thanks to them for the ones that did. It kind of dried up about 15 minutes ago in terms of comments, but they were probably sick of us going on about the Irish team. But I mean, it was a good discussion in my opinion. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely, same as.
We're gonna have, I think, one of these at night now. So I think Jer and Paul Tierney and a few of the boys are gonna be on now over the next couple of nights. So make sure if you are watching that you get involved in the comments. And who knows, maybe we'll get some fans in to join us one of the nights. And we'll watch the football and talk about football at the same time like we're doing now. So huge thanks to Will and Jack for coming on. Jack is actually one of the crew here now, and Will is a regular contributor. So make sure to go follow them there. Is that your Instagram names or both? Or
Twitter.
that's your Twitter. That's my Instagram. Yeah. So if you are following and you want to follow the lads to see more or hear more, there you are. Thanks for coming on, lads. I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks very much.
Thanks
Cheers,
for watching,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye bye. All the best.